Good evening, everybody. It's 9:30 on the East Coast, 6:30 on the West Coast. On a Monday, it must mean that it's time for your weekly Claim to Jane live stream. James, how are you doing on this evening? And I should probably turn my camera on. Hold on.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
there I
So
am. Oh, wow. There I
multitasking,
go. Yeah, I'm trying to do it all at the same time.
multitasking right off the bat.
Well, this
So
is this
let's
is what
make
happens when
sure.
we're actually live, right? Mistakes happen. When we're pre-recorded, we
Yeah, but
can
that's
pause and
that's part
start
of the
over.
charm.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So I remember last week I think we were trying to do something and like we had some glitches with audio. So we're all good. Like everything's healthy
Everything,
and
yeah, everything seems healthy and seems
okay.
good. Yeah. So
Terrific.
so
Yeah.
for all of you who enjoyed our stream recorded, when I started recording, I apparently had turned my microphone off and we could only hear James's voice. So that was weird.
Nah.
Um,
Yeah.
that problem seems to
Yeah.
be solved if the numbers are the decibel count is right on my OBS instance, so I'm going to assume that
Yeah.
it
Hopefully you
is.
see all the little
Oh yeah,
colors
yeah.
kind of on the yeah.
It's moving around now. It's moving around now.
Okay, that's good. Well, I mean, I know that was a delayed pause to answer your question, and it wasn't because I'm trying to avoid the question. I mean, I'm doing just fine on my side, and I'm
Excellent.
assuming you're doing good on your side, but I don't want to jump ahead, but maybe things are crazy right now in Georgia with heat, or who knows, you
I
know?
mean, it's hot here. There's no question about it, but it's Georgia. I mean, everybody's freaking
Hmm.
out about the temperatures, and I'm like, yeah, this is just June. I guess I
Yeah,
just don't understand. Like, Georgia is
yeah,
miserable in the summer. It's hot and it's humid and it's just miserable. And so it's like, yeah, I mean, this is what it's like every summer. What part of this is new to people? I don't get it.
yeah, yeah. So a typical hot Georgia summer, is that
Typical
kind of
hot
what?
Georgia summer. Yep, yep.
Okay.
So,
Well, I'll jump into what we working on tonight and hanging
all
out with
right.
you and talking about whatever. So I'll
Sounds like
share
a
my
plan.
screen and we'll get underway a little bit. So for tonight's stream, I am going to attempt to animate Calamity tripping over herself and then blasting that gun on accident.
Excellent. I love it.
So yeah, so I'll be kind of setting up the poses tonight. I'll be kind of accessing the master library from Calamity Jane, see what I can borrow and see what I have to create on my own. And yeah, we'll go from there.
All right. Sounds good. You been doing anything interesting of late, James?
Not really. Like there's some things I was going to talk to you about
Yeah.
this week. I think we were kind of touched on it yesterday off stream.
Yeah. Yeah. How
One was
dare we
the this
talk when we're
whole
not broadcasting?
yeah, it's yeah. I mean, it's terrible. Like what we can kind of plan and you
Mm-hmm.
know
Mm-hmm.
in smoke filled rooms with cigars and stuff like that. But
That's usually what my office is like, yes.
um, so I said to because for me, like you know how I mentioned in the stream, like I don't know how you're doing and like if the sky was falling, but for me, I mean, you calmed me down a little bit, but I did come across this a couple of YouTube video streamer guys talking about Suno, that
Suno. Yeah.
the AI audio musician creation tool, and it kind of and for me it kind of freaked me out. So we've gone through this, and it goes to a broader, we could yeah, this is going to be a long one,
Well, let's
possibly.
go. Let's go.
Yeah,
I'm here for it.
so we for the past year or so we've seen Midjourney kind of come
Mm-hmm.
up to its own, Chat GPT before that, I think. I don't know what the exact linear timeline is for all, but we've been getting all this artificial intelligence type of tools, and like to me the latest one is now the Suno stuff where you can make music with it. And you can make any kind of genre of music. And it was kind of on like with ChatGPT and then even with Midjourney, I wasn't completely freaked out. It is sad because I know people that have lost jobs because of AI. But I think it's also an overreaction to thinking that people can push one button and everything's magically done. And I think we will kind of get back to an equilibrium type of thing with that type of stuff. But the audio stuff did freak me out a little bit. Like I'm gonna be honest with you. I think
Mm-hmm.
like it's just like, whoa, this is insane stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna hand the baton off to you on this because I know you and I were both talking. You kind of talked me off the ledge on that a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah. I mean, I think my first takeaway when I watched the two videos that you sent me was, wow, popular music is really bad. Because so all of these AI systems, I feel like we should start by distinguishing between AI and AGI.
Yes,
AI
yeah.
is what exists, artificial intelligence. What people are afraid of is AGI, artificial generalized intelligence, and that is the new jargon, the new buzzword for what Skynet is, for what data is. It's actual sentience created artificially through non-organic means, right? What these
Yeah.
systems are largely large language models or variations thereof, and they are incapable of thinking for themselves, right?
Hmm.
What these creations do is through very advanced calculations have learned to interpret the patterns in human thought and creation and emulate that and mimic it, right?
Hmm.
So when it's writing an essay for you, it's going, okay, after the word dinosaur, generally speaking, there's a probability that the appropriate word that comes after dinosaur is this. And then once that word
Hmm.
is there, and so it's using probabilities based on its inputs, which is all of the internet at this point, to predict what the most logical word to come after a previous word is, right? You know, all the way through grammar and everything based on what the prompt is. And this is extensible to it's the same basic principle that Midjourney works on. It's a same basic principle that that music thing works on, right? So these aren't it's not thinking. It's not aware of what it's doing. It's doing
Yeah.
math, right? And generating an output. It has no idea what it's generated. It doesn't have any concept or context for what it's creating. It's using math to generate something that it thinks makes sense based on the inputs, right?
And now, now with this, so here's one thing. I don't know. I think we kind of touched on a little bit, but I'm even caught up with the whole term artificial intelligence, implying that I think people do get caught up and they kind of conflate
Mm-hmm.
Skynet
Mm-hmm.
and self-aware software or technology that's actually doing its own thing. But
Mm-hmm.
just like how you just described it perfectly. Like all it is just a set of commands and lines of code that tell it do this, this. It's all linear,
Right.
and it has to wait for a human to engage it to
Right.
do something. So
Correct.
it's not even so I don't know what the right is that. So you're calling it artificial generated intelligence? That's what we're supposed to fear. That is what
Right.
Skynet is. But what
Artificial
this is
generalized intelligence. Yeah.
yeah. But this, all
Is
this
not.
is to me, I mean, we're reducing it. I mean, I hate to reduce it down to this, but all I
No.
consider this is like a batch file, like
Yes.
a .bat file that just runs a set of lines and gives you
Sure.
something. That's
It
all it's
is.
doing. It's just
Yeah.
sitting, yeah,
Yeah. It is the most complicated batch file ever created in the history of
yeah,
humanity. I think that that's a fair statement to make. So
yeah.
I preface all of that by saying, so as a result, everything, the reason why the plagiarism thing has come up, right, is that these systems are incapable of creating something new. It's not possible with the way these things work. All they're capable of doing is interpreting things that humans have already made and then mimicking it, right? So
Mhm.
every essay it produces, every image that it produces, every piece of music that it produces isn't new. It's an amalgamation of the information that's been fed into it, and it's mimicking what it knows about that information, right? So when I say, holy crap, popular music is really garbage, it's because in these videos, these musicians, they were musicians, were feeding in prompts designed to generate popular music, essentially. And what they got
Mhm.
out was a pretty good imitation of popular music. But what
Mhm.
they said to me was is, holy crap, popular music is terrible. Because I guarantee you, everything, and I've played with it now. So I've got another side project that I'm working on, and I needed some
Mhm.
music to go underneath some time lapse footage. So I actually hopped on that very app, created an
Mhm.
account, and tried to generate something that I wanted, and I couldn't find the right combination of words for it to create anything interesting or useful, because everything that it created was so generic and so
Mhm.
boring and so uninteresting that it was unusable, right? It was
So
a
it
copy of a copy of a copy.
so in the example video that I sent
Yeah.
you, the streamer was able to do like a Mississippi blues
Yeah.
type of a song, and it sounded like a bluesy kind of song. Then he went to an urban rap like trap music kind of a
Yep.
song, and it sounded, I mean, to my
Basically.
untrained ear. So if I think we have to differentiate something else. Like, you actually dabble with music, you play
Yeah.
guitar. I would defer to you as more of a musician than I ever am. But I am part of the general populace that has no discerning ear. But
Yeah.
what I heard was, I was amazed, like, wow, that sounds like blues. I love blues and jazz. So yeah,
Yeah.
I am a
Yeah.
little more discerning with that. But like, I was impressed with how the artificial vocalist was able to go up and down and stuff like that. There was, like, I could see myself going into some restaurant and somebody sitting in the corner and doing some live music, and I would be fine with it. I would have no issue with it. That's what scared me.
Yeah.
And then there was the hip hop thing that they did. Then they did the pop music, which again I'm in complete agreement with. I think pop music has been destroyed
It's so
since
homogenized. I
early.
mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's really bad. But that's my whole thing, is like, it is able to give you different genres of music, not the best, but it's
Yeah.
able to give you something to where you can walk by and you're not going to notice that it's
Yeah.
artificially generated right off the bat, unless you have an ear for it. Do you see what I'm saying? That's my
Yeah,
concern.
I agree with you. And I think that that concern is valid. I think in the next couple of years, a lot of, and this doesn't just apply to music, this applies to all sort of stock
Mhm.
art, blog writing, stock image generation, elevator music, all of these, very designed to be generic, transparent, disappearable pieces of art, right? Content, even. They're not really art, they're more content. Um,
Uh-huh.
those are going to be done by AI, I think, in the next two or so years. And I think that there are actual people whose job it is to generate this content. They're going to lose their jobs. I don't think that that's avoidable at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I don't know that it's a good or a bad thing. I think it is just a thing. It's just what happens when a new technology shows up. There becomes a paradigm shift in how the world works, and unfortunately, people lose their jobs. Right? I mean, I've become a victim of that. I One of the reasons why I lost my last job is because places like CNET and BuzzFeed started using AI to write their blog articles, and
Mm,
their hits weren't going down. And so it's like, why am I
yeah.
paying a humans to do this? And as a result, the company that I worked for, which still did employ humans, their click counts weren't matching the click counts of their competitors who were using AI, and they fired a bunch of their human staff. So, I've been a
Wow.
part of that
Yeah.
downsizing at this point, you know?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so I am sensitive to it, and I do realize it, but I do also think it's unavoidable, unfortunately. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
now my hope is, and I think that if we were better at taking care of each other as human beings, we would see this cost of new technology and we would make a better effort to support our fellow man and, either retrain them or find a different job within their same sort of milieu that they could pivot into, or just at the very least give them support because their life has been upended by technology. We don't do that, and that's a larger conversation.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a whole other. Yeah.
but at least in the sake of AI, yes, that is I think a legitimate concern, and I think it is already happening, which is
Yeah.
people who generate stock content are going to start losing their jobs in the next year or two, including music. But that's the only thing it's good at, right? I spent a good hour trying to get that music program
Hmm.
to generate any piece of music that was even within 5% of what I was looking for. I used complete sentences. I spoke to it, I wrote to it in natural languages. I used
Yeah.
single words with semicolons, got very machine and rigid with it. I tried every
Hmm.
variation that I could think of for it to generate something that I thought was useful, and it never produced anything interesting. So you know what I did?
So.
I got on YouTube, I Googled the exact same search string and found 15 human generated pieces that were all
Uh-huh.
perfect for what I was looking for, right? Because
That's cool.
human beings create, computers
Yeah.
mimic, and that's the
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah. But here's something. This is more about, like, this is more in the weeds. But I'm curious, if while you were trying to use the AI, were you expecting lyrics, or were you just going strictly for just
I was
music
looking
itself? And
specifically for instrumental. There is a toggle in the app
wow, jeez,
that says
yeah,
just instrumental, and it couldn't even
and you
produce anything from
still,
an instrumental standpoint. Like I said, please make a simple piece of music using only guitars and banjos, and only using the G and the C chords. And
Wow, that's
not only did it produce music that had no banjo in it every time, it had no
huh.
band. The only way I could get it to generate music with a banjo is by saying use only banjo. That was the only way I could get it to produce something with banjo, right?
Huh.
And no matter how many times I said use only these specific chords, it just produced whatever the fuck it wanted to, right?
Hmm.
It's not smart enough to actually compose. It can
Mm-hmm.
only mimic. And so you telling it to use only the G and C chords, it has no idea what that means, right? Um, and so yeah, so like my experiments today, I am even less concerned about this from the standpoint of art as a larger kind of um, concept. And again,
Mm-hmm.
I will reiterate: is it good enough to produce elevator music? Is it good enough to
Yeah.
produce non-offensive piano music that plays in the background of restaurants? Yes, it is
Yeah.
good enough to do
Mm-hmm.
that. It is
Yeah.
not. It will, at least in the foreseeable future, at least based on my experiences with it, will it produce Bohemian Rhapsody? Never. Not a
Yeah.
chance in hell.
It won't.
Right?
Yeah.
Will it produce Revolution? No, it won't produce Revolution. Will it produce Immigrant Song? There's no way. Right? These actual pieces of music that stand the test of time, they stand a test of time because humans made them. And
Mm-hmm.
the AI is not capable. Again, I'm repeating myself now, but it's not capable of creating. It's only capable of mimicking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, so yeah, I watched those videos, and I the first video the guy was super excited. I'm like, wow, dude, you are way too excited. And then the second guy was like, the world is ending, the sky is falling. I'm
Yeah.
like, whoa, dude,
Yeah.
okay, you need to
I
cool your
gave
jets
you
a little bit, right?
I
Like
gave you two I gave you two extremes
two
for videos.
extremes. And my takeaway was just like, meh. I was just like completely
Wow.
nonplussed. Yeah.
Yeah, that actually made me feel better because I was actually like kind of pining a little bit. It's like, oh my gosh, like
Yeah.
this is pretty scary. Because I think part of it also is, again, I know you dabble with music, but the first guy that I used that I sent to you, he was a musician.
Yeah.
He showed that he played in bands, stuff like that, and he's all excited about it. And I just didn't share his excitement at all. I was like,
Look, just because he plays in a band doesn't mean he's good
yeah,
in the band.
yeah. I get it. That's true. Absolutely true. But
I mean, I didn't hear
I
anything he's actually played. Like he had a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
words, but I didn't actually hear any of the music that he played or created for that matter, right? Maybe he's just in a
Yeah.
cover band and he plays
Mhm.
things that other people have created and he's never actually produced music himself. I don't know. I don't know anything about this guy.
Yeah, sure, sure. Yeah, that's fair.
Um
Um, but the
and
other guy,
yeah, he's
he
also a
seemed like
musician. Yeah.
he's also a musician. Um, and maybe we'll get links or something. We'll put these down
Yeah, we
there
can
in
add
our
them in the show notes. Yeah.
yeah. But he's had all of his music set up. He had the sound walls. Like you could tell that was not for show. Like that's a very expensive
Oh yeah.
prop to have to add credibility. He seemed like a very credible type of guy. But yeah, it was sky's falling for him. He was
Mhm.
not very happy. Um,
And
but
I would
yeah.
recommend everybody, including you, actually get on this thing. And I'll find a link and I'll put it in the show notes as well.
Hmm.
Um, Produce something with vocals. They sound like robots singing. They don't sound like humans. Um, I don't know if the audio quality on their videos weren't good enough or what, but all of
Hmm.
the vocals, because I did at one point was like playing around with actually getting lyrics. And
Hmm.
all of the vocals that came they sounded like robots singing. Sound like robots emulating human voices. I mean, it's very, very apparent. Um,
Hmm.
and so I don't even think like I don't even think that Britney Spears has anything to worry about because her vocal quality is obviously far superior. This thing is never going to win America's Got Talent, right? It's never going to win any of these, even the most generic of pop songs, right? It's still better than what this thing was producing just because of the vocal quality of the AI voices.
And see, this is why I thought it was fascinating because sending it to you, you can discern that stuff. But again, like when the things that I heard, the examples I heard, like they did a Gregorian chant. I don't
Yeah.
have enough of an ear to know that was a computer. It sounded
Uh,
authentic to me, but
yeah, yeah, I didn't
you
produce
could
a
tell.
Gregorian chant, so maybe the Gregorian chant sounds perfectly. I don't know, but
Yeah, but I mean that's what I mean. Like there was enough there. There was enough genre hopping that I couldn't tell.
mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
again, my ears untrained. I'm just a layman out there in the universe going, oh, there's a Gregorian chant. Oh,
Right.
there's a pop song, and then I kind of tune it out because I
Right.
don't care,
Right.
all
Right.
that much.
Yeah,
But
and when I'm in an elevator, I'm not paying that close attention either. So
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
this would work for an elevator, but it's not ever going to work for if you're actually looking for anything of any substantive value, right? And we talked briefly about this. I think what's going to happen is the same reflex thing that always happens with a new technology. The powers that be see an opportunity to save money. They
hmm
fire all of their talent that used to
yep,
do the thing that the technology is now replacing. They try to make the technology work for all things. It inevitably doesn't. They realize, oh shoot, maybe we shouldn't have fired all of those people. And then they try to rehire some of them who have at this point already moved on to other things. Right?
yeah.
It's the
That
same
that
rubber band that happens all the time. And it's just the most depressing thing is that it does. It happens all of the time. You know?
yeah. On the flip side of it, we could also be so there's two other things that I found interesting. Just for you and I, we're relatively the same generation. You kind of straddle
I'm
two
like,
generations. I'm
yeah,
Gen X.
yeah, yeah.
You're Gen X and Y, right? Is that the term Y or
Millennial,
millennial?
millennial.
Millennial.
Yeah.
Okay. But for our generations now, anybody alive right now, we've actually seen the internet revolution and probably, even though I hate to use the term AI, but we are seeing an AI revolution.
Yeah, I mean AI.
Um,
That is the correct nomenclature for what this technology is.
yeah,
For what that's worth.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um,
Whereas with our parents or any a generation before, like, what do we have? Like, and I'm not a historian, but like we had the Industrial Revolution. We had that type of stuff. But like, it was usually one big giant technological jump of some sort
right.
that generations had to absorb. But we've actually, in just 20, 30 years, we've seen two, I think, potential earth-shattering type of technologies that's impacting humans' lives.
Yeah, I will.
Versus, you
Yeah.
know,
So I will say that at the turn of the century, right, with the advent of motion pictures,
mhm,
so my grandparents on my mother's side were born in 1912, 1914, right around the era of the Titanic, right?
uh-huh,
So movies were new when they were born. I mean, they'd
yeah.
been around for
Mhm,
just over a decade. So
mhm,
my grandparents grew up with the burgeoning technology of film, then
yeah,
radio and
mhm,
television. Like they had three massive paradigm shifts in their lifespan,
okay,
right?
that's fair, yeah,
Um, and but yeah, but then like my parents and they until they were in their late 40s already, nothing really changed significantly technologically. Everything was very incremental. And
yeah.
then, Moore's law and computers changed everything and the internet showed up. And I don't think that you and I have seen the last of the technical
No,
revolutions that are going to occur in our lifetime. I mean, I think, yes, neither of us are even 50 and we've already seen two. I suspect in our lifespan, we're going to see God knows how many more because the rate of human advancement
yeah, it's
has
gone.
it's going up exponentially at this point.
Yeah, you can't. I don't think you can even like. Like, I feel bad for futurists that are trying to kind of gauge where, with their next novel, how they're going to write about something
Hmm.
because it's already gone kind of bonkers.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken about him already on the podcast, but like even Neil Stephenson, who is considered one of the premier futurists in the world, I stopped reading his most recent novel, Tornation Shock. I'll probably get back into it, but partly because
Yeah.
a huge subplot is about COVID and about how it changed the
Oh,
world and how people walk around with COVID monitors all the time on their phones and are
uh-huh.
constantly worried about COVID. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
that
That
didn't even
happened for
age well
what?
within 4 years,
No. No, it
right?
didn't. No.
You know,
No.
and this is a guy who predicted the notion of the modern internet. He predicted the advent of like the concept of like online avatars and things like that. He predicted cryptocurrency. I mean, the guy has been really spot on in terms of his futuristic or predicting the future, right? And
So on the flip side, though, I mean, in his defense, I mean, I'm not a huge. I mean, I'm indifferent to him. But
yeah,
let's just take the word COVID out. Like, what if another super bug comes out and we do
sure.
have to have that monitor type? I mean, I guess I can kind of see that maybe.
I mean, I think my biggest problem with it is he presents a world where people correctly organize around it and manage it correctly. And if
Oh,
anything, I
You have
think
no
that
faith in humanity
no,
to.
I think humanity has proven that what happens when something like the a pandemic occurs is um, we run around like
Oh,
chickens with our heads chopped off, and then we deal with
yeah.
the aftermath when the dust settles, right?
Mm.
And so I find it, and maybe I'm just too much of a pessimist, but reading the book, I find it so ridiculous that people would
Because it's too
be
organized.
just too
Because people
organized.
have too.
Yeah.
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
people are too rational and everything. Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
true. There's no
Mm-hmm.
fear taken into account at
Right.
all.
Right.
Man, did he write that during the pandemic or did he write that
Well,
before?
let me see. I mean, he specifically talks about COVID, so this was clearly a COVID era book.
Okay, all right.
Let me see. I don't remember when it came out. It was within the last couple of years. Um, it came out in 2021, so he released this right after
Okay, all right.
the pandemic. So he really wrote
Okay,
this one fast, and
okay.
um, you know that part doesn't hold up well. Now his climate change stuff is actually really interesting and is still very potentially relevant. Some of the things he's talking about, like, okay, yeah, I can see that, right?
Mm-hmm,
But the COVID stuff is just like it's ridiculous. Um,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and and so yes, so that was a really long way of saying, yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't envy futurists like science fiction writers right now.
Yeah, how do you keep on top of it now? I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
Mm-hmm.
if there's too much, there's a way too much incredible technological process, all with the computer, pretty much, it
Mm-hmm.
seems like these days.
Oh yeah.
It's really changed things up. So yeah, yeah, it just boggles my mind. Like we're just seeing how it's impacting things and um but yeah, at the same time, all you can do is kind of, absorb it and do
Yeah.
the best you can and adapt. I mean, that's one thing humans are okay at doing, I think.
I mean,
When push
honestly,
comes to shove.
it's the best thing. It's the only thing we're really the best at is
Yeah,
adaptability, right? I mean,
yeah.
human beings, there's a lot of reasons why human beings are at the top of the food chain, and their ability to adapt to their environment is one of the main reasons.
Mhm.
And it will not be pleasant. It will hurt, and people are going to die, and mistakes are going to be made along the way. And when the dust settles, the world might not even be a better place. But, humans will find a way to exist within that space because that's what humans do, right?
Mhm.
Human beings' ability to normalize even the worst trauma is one of their greatest strengths and one of their greatest weaknesses, quite frankly. Um, and
And,
yeah, I mean that's yeah,
and I mean, all that goes out the door as soon as Skynet shows up and all that
sure,
stuff. But until that happens, yeah, nothing's changed
yeah. I mean
all too much.
everything that I've read is the notion of artificial generalized intelligence, which is something that scientists are actively working on, or is decades away, decades or more away. Um,
Hmm.
and who's to say whether we'll be ready when that finally shows up? I would argue, because I'm a bit of a pessimist, that we won't be.
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
but again, we'll adapt or we'll go extinct. I mean, those are the way human beings have always functioned, right? Um, and so yeah, I don't know. I saw those videos and I sort of laughed through most of them,
Oh,
honestly.
good. I'm glad. I'm glad
Yeah,
because I was like kind of like getting stressed out. I'm
yeah,
happy you had a completely different reaction than I did. That's great.
yeah.
So I mean, yeah. But again, yeah, you put my mind at ease a little bit after you and I talked about it a little bit. But yeah, at the same time, there is some things to be pining about because I think
Mm-hmm.
jobs can be lost, will be lost.
Mm-hmm. I agree. 100% agree.
But
Yeah.
it's the same thing. Like in a, I don't know if it's a fair comparison, but I always compare it to what happened with the industrialization of making automobiles, making the assembly line.
Mm-hmm.
Robots took over. Robot arms were better than human arms any day of the week on the assembly line, and jobs were lost.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side, I am, you know, I subscribe to the whole training thing is also really special too. But imagine, then imagine somebody who's been at it for
Right.
X amount of years. Maybe they're 60 years old. They're just beyond like really
Right.
they're gonna,
And no,
I don't,
yeah, and I
you
think at
know,
that point there can be an argument made that we create a special retirement program for people like
yeah,
that,
sure,
right? That
sure,
they're beyond the point where they can reasonably retrain. It's like, well, the timing was bad, so we are going to subsidize your retirement towards the end. I mean, I think that there can be a case
yeah,
made for that, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I think right now what humans do, or at least I don't know how any other country does it because I don't live there, but at least in the United States, we don't do anything, right?
Anything. Yeah.
Oh, the
Yeah.
technology changed. Sorry, don't let the door
Yeah.
kick
It
you on
is.
the way out. Hit you in the ass on the way out, right?
Yeah. That's
Um,
probably not to get down the rabbit hole too much, but that's probably a product of us being in a capitalistic society. We just next person up that can fill this role to keep generating cashola,
yeah,
you're up kind of a thing. Um,
yeah. We
yeah.
we certainly don't we certainly don't take care of people in this country. Um, and yeah, again, I think that that's a larger conversation outside of the scope of AI. But
Mhm.
yeah, but yeah, I played around with it today. I mean, in all earnest, not to,
Wow.
I
Yeah,
mean, to
that's
really
pretty
to
funny.
try to generate something that I could use, and I ended up going to YouTube and just finding something that a human created.
Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
even think that stock content creators' jobs are in jeopardy immediately. I think as the technology advances, and in 2 or 3 years, maybe it'll be at a point. But again, I have to emphasize the point. Like, none of these technologies are capable of creating. They're
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
capable of mimicking, right?
Yeah.
And I have used it to give me ideas for cover letters, right?
Hmm.
So I've like gone into ChatGPT and produced me a cover letter that has this, and this, right?
Yep.
And it produces a
Hmm.
cover letter, and I'll read it. And I'm like, that's interesting. Okay, I like that idea. I like that idea. I like that idea. And then immediately throw the whole thing away and write my own cover letter, right?
Hmm.
Integrating it's like, oh, I like the wording that you use there. Okay, I'll use something along those lines. I could never imagine. I mean, I know people do this, but I don't know why they would. Copy and pasting directly from ChatGPT is the worst thing that you could do because it is so obviously plagiarized at every level,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I think, and that's part of the, like, I was talking to a friend of mine who teaches at the university, um, in the writing program. He was saying that ChatGPT now at this point is becoming too homogenized. It keeps sourcing itself and
Mm-hmm.
eating itself and
Mm-hmm.
giving, and like you could really tell that it's very kind of cookie cutter, it's not, there's nothing unique about it
Yep.
anymore. And like a lot of students don't even, well, a lot of students are kind of like what you were saying, they use it as a jumping point, but then they have to actually go and write and
Yep.
actually do stuff with it
I
to
mean,
actually make it useful.
yeah. I mean, at my job, the one that actually pays me to do things, um, we use Midjourney from time to time
Hmm. Hmm.
for internal design documents, right?
Yeah.
Where we just need a visual aid of like four adventurers walking through the plains or
Yeah.
something like that.
Hmm.
It's great for
Yeah.
that. It's worthless. I mean, none of that art is usable as concept art. None of it is usable as actual inspiration for the actual look of the game. But what it is good at doing is, breaking up a game design document so that it's not just a wall of words for 150 pages, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And in that capacity, it's useful because our lead artist doesn't have to sit and draw a bunch of throwaway art. We can just toss it to Midjourney to produce, some art that we're never going to use, that we just look at internally, and that only shows up in our design documents. And then he goes and actually makes the real art for the game.
Hmm.
Um, and uh, and so yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, and this is why I've never really been that afraid of the AI revolution,
Hmm.
is that it will only ever be a utility. It will only ever be a tool. It can't replace everybody. It might replace some
Yeah.
people, but
Hmm.
it's not going to go. And honestly, I find its utility to be less value than the robots that build cars. If you want to know the
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah, because at least robots that build cars, there's a already accepted protocol to follow and a blueprint to follow, and
Yep.
everybody's
Boom.
acknowledged this is all you need to do,
That's
and
all you need to
it
do,
follows
and that
those,
just does it.
it
Yep.
follows these step, yeah. Whereas with concept art, the whole push and pull with concept, and sadly, I think again going back to Midjourney, I know a lot of artists that have lost jobs because of AI, but I think it
Unfortunately,
is, yeah. But there is no, but now the problem is there's no discourse. There's no
yeah.
going back and forth. Well, I really want that color to be this, or I want
Yep.
this to have three horns, and then somebody has to sit, and somebody has no art skill has to sit there and try to write a prompt to kind of get that, and spend X amount of hours just to get that extra horn in there or to do something else. Like you can only use it as almost like a sketch to kind of get a conversation started. And then you have an artist actually fine tune it and do
Hmm.
the real stuff. Just like what you were saying with your job. I mean, it sounds like exactly what's happening with
Yeah,
what's going on with your
exactly. We would
day to
never
day.
use everything that Midjourney produces isn't good enough to use for us. Pure and
Mm-hmm.
simple. It is at best an inspiration point.
Yeah.
Um, and but you did make a point earlier that I thought was very interesting, and it is that um, people are using these AI programs and then uploading the results onto the internet, which then
Mm-hmm.
all these programs are then going to source.
Sourcing it. Yep. They
So
source that
they're
too. It's just
sourcing itself, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so it's going to create this feedback loop where it almost becomes, I mean, it could create this, I don't know that it will, but it could create this feedback loop where, you know, that the results get worse and worse and worse by virtue of the fact that people are using them uncritically, which the idea of that is hilarious, that human beings are making AI dumber because we use it
Yeah,
uncritically.
but now even let's we can go even a step further back with just humans though. When it came back to what you were saying about how you're so surprised how terrible and shitty music has become,
Yes.
especially pop music, because they all they do is they use programs to kind of identify what are the perfect pitches for a
Mm-hmm.
pop song, and then so
Mm-hmm.
we've already been feeding that anyway with
Right.
humanity
Right.
in general.
Exactly. I know.
And we've already been making pop singers out of a lab in a way, you know, in
Yeah.
our own
Oh, no,
human
no, no.
lab
I totally
with
agree.
you know with Disney Kids, Disney Channel, like
Yeah.
they all are exactly like they all
Yep.
sing the same. They have the same pitch
Yep.
range. They're incredible. They're very technically
Oh,
skilled,
right.
but
Within that very
yeah,
specific. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's one of the
yeah.
reasons why
But
I never
that's
found American Idol interesting, because every singer
yeah,
all felt in these into these very quantized tiny little buckets, and
hmm
everybody sounded the same. Like, I didn't understand what the appeal of that show, because every piece of music ever produced from that show was boring. I mean, at best it was boring, and at worst it was god awful, right? And and this is all, that's all this is this is just American Idol, quite frankly. This music program, it is, yes, good
so
job, you have replicated something that someone created long before you, and you are standing badly on the shoulders of giants.
well. See, I am. This is going to be crazy. I'm going to defend American Idol. I mean,
Okay.
we had Kelly Clarkson come out of it, and she's an incredible singer. But again, but that's where. But I will put the asterisk. She's an incredible singer. Her range is incredible. It's super talented. That's the first season they did it, and it's still experimental, I think. But she does pop music, and so that does kind of fall into that whole genre of pop music that was already getting manufactured. But I appreciate her singing skill set
Yeah.
for just what it is. She could belt
Sure.
it out
Oh, I'm not
phenomenal.
I'm not
Yeah.
disparaging the
Yeah. Yeah.
biological talent of these people,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
They
But
have
it all
gifts and they have
mhm.
training, but then
Yeah.
yeah, the problem is what they use their God-given gifts, or whatever, universe-given gifts,
Yeah.
or whatever, what how they use those
Yeah.
tools, right?
And then to kind of just keep going on this same line, there are some really good singers that come up through American Idol, but
Mm-hmm.
eventually it does get to that homogenized state of the pop singer uh pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
And then those unique kind of singers always kind of filter out to the sides. You don't really get the unique sounds anymore
Yep.
because we as Americans, when as watching the show, we already are kind of feeding into this is what sounds good, and it's
Mm-hmm.
the manufactured pop singer sound, and
Mm-hmm.
eventually that's what ends up winning. I mean, recently, I don't know
Yeah.
about there's been again back in the early seasons of American Idol, there were some pretty interesting singers that kind of came out, and I would even
But
say
none of them won,
now,
though. None of them won. The
yeah,
winners
no,
are
yeah,
always
yeah,
the most homogenized.
same, yeah, almost, yeah, yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
a great example is I think his name is Adam Lambert.
Adam
He didn't
Lambert.
even win,
Yeah.
yeah, but he actually just was emulating pretty much like he now he's on tour with Queen because he fits perfectly with Queen. But he is again another copy of Queen. Like I can't tell you what his unique sound is, but
Right.
at least he was enough of a difference where he copied another really talented
Sure,
phenomenal artist, right?
sure,
So,
sure. But
but he didn't. Yeah, he didn't win.
yeah, but he's also like,
Um,
I mean, Freddie Mercury was a genius, obviously. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
and obviously not all musicians need to be Freddie Mercury to be successful or
Hmm.
considered talented.
Hmm.
Um, but
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, Adam Lambert is a copy of a copy to a sense, and in a sense,
Yeah.
again, not to disparage his natural talents, but he's also not writing these amazing pieces of music the way that Freddie Mercury
Hmm.
did, right?
Hmm.
And again, I'm
Hmm.
not saying that you have to write your own music to be talented either, right? I
But to
mean,
be, yeah, but yeah.
I mean, you know what I'm saying, right? Like
Hmm.
this music app, it wrote the music, it's performing the music, it produced the music, and it's terrible, right? In my opinion, not to
Yeah.
disparage the AI overlords, I apologize. But you know,
Sure.
Freddie Mercury did the same thing, and his work is still listened to today. You know, I mean,
Hmm.
A Night at the Opera is still considered one of the greatest rock albums in the history of rock. You know, and
Yeah.
there's a
Hmm.
reason why that's the case. Um, and um, and yeah, I just don't see AI in my lifetime, at least, getting to within, I mean, like being even 10% of what Freddie Mercury was. And I'm harping on Freddie Mercury because I mean he was a fucking musical genius, right? But I
Hmm.
mean we don't even have to go with Freddie Mercury. You could pick, I don't know, Green Day. Quite frankly, I don't think,
Hmm.
frankly, this music AI can emulate anything even as good as what Green Day has produced. And you know, Green
Hmm.
Day, when it for their part, when they came out, they were pretty a unique way of blending pop and punk and a little bit of rock in there,
Yeah. Hmm.
which
Hmm.
then of course a thousand also rans tried to emulate to, you know, varying degrees of success. But um you know, so I'm not trying to denigrate Green Day because I like Green Day a lot. I think they've produced some really good music. But I don't think AI could ever, you know, at least again in my lifetime, produce anything even comparable to Green Day's worst song, you know.
Hmm.
um
Hmm.
so I don't know, I guess I'm not worried about it. I look at it and I've used it enough to go, this is kind of an interesting tool. It can help me a little bit, but it's not a replacement for anything. I Okay, so this is another example, and we talked about this. So this last weekend, I went to, a couple of friends were performing in a theater festival, and we went and saw one of the shows, and it was a drag queen show, which was hysterical, by the way. Like it was so
Hmm.
good. The performers were so good, and
Hmm.
um, the last, it was like a variety show, and the last segment of the variety show, the drag queen who was organizing it, she popped into ChatGPT and gave it the prompt, make me the gayest fairy tale that you can possibly make, or some prompt like that. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And ChatGPT produced a 4-page sketch that was the dumbest thing on the face of the planet. But watching these performers act it out was brilliant. And it's like
Yeah.
that's where ChatGPT is useful, is
Hmm.
enabling humans to make something great, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it was
It's
nonsensical. The sketch, it was a 4-page sketch that had 6 acts. I mean, it had 5 acts because I forgot to include Act Two, right? I mean, it was it was absolutely awful. It was not usable whatsoever. But when you put it in the hands of these 4 drag queens in their hilarious get-ups, right? And they're all theater trained, so they're all actors,
hmm.
and they perform it, and they, you know, you lean into it, right? You don't, you take it seriously. That's how you make these kind of things funny, is you don't play it for parody, you play it straight. And so they
Yeah.
did that, and it was one of the funniest things I've seen in 6 months. Right? I mean, it was hilarious, and that to me was the perfect example of what AI is good for: is making human beings produce something that's even better. Right? So I don't know. I don't know. I'll get off my
It's
soapbox
probably
now.
yeah. No, you're not a. I don't think you're a. It's not a soapbox. I mean, we're just. I think we're just analyzing what how we see it. It's just two
Yeah.
guys
Yeah.
that kind of casually use it here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, but you definitely did. You did calm me down. Over my fretting over the music stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just but there's also, I mean, when you're zooming out to overall state of humanity and their taste in music, I'm included in this.
Mm-hmm.
I can't discern what's good and bad, especially with pop music. And that's where there is still a little bit of fear because I think it will be accepted. Because we've already accepted the overproduction of pop music anyway, the
Right.
past 20, 30 years. Like it's
Right.
changed so much from the 80s to the mid 90s is when it became more of a cookie cutter assembly line type of process.
So,
And now,
yeah.
now the with AI, it's just going to feed on that and kill and copy itself on that. And our ears, humanity, I'm speaking, not you individually, but
Yeah.
we're still going to enjoy crap, and we're going to still keep enjoying crap. You know, that's
So,
my
yeah.
pessimistic view in that way. It's funny because
Yeah.
sometimes I flip. I'm an optimist.
Right.
You're the pessimist, but in this case, I think it's funny. I feel like you're the more the optimist than I am. Although
Yeah.
you have, like I said, you you calm my nerves about it a little bit, but I am a little nervous still, you know.
So I think, I think one thing that, again, I'm being an optimist here, which, yeah, admittedly is rare for me. But my hope is that what it does is one of the reasons why I think pop music, and we're harping on pop music a lot here, but it is
Yeah.
it's really gotten into a rut in the last 20 years or so.
Hmm.
Um, my hope is that what it will do with the advent of AI that can produce at the quality that a lot of these artists are producing at, it will spur the human creators to get better, right?
Hmm.
There's nothing like a little healthy competition to get you off of your ass and start moving and creating something good, right?
Hmm.
With the baseline now set at AI, if you want to make a career in music as a pop artist, then you have to at least be better than AI, right?
Hmm.
And so, in that regard, it could be a good thing by spurring people to be more creative and, get them out of their comfort zone. Um, we'll see if that actually happens, but I think that is a potential.
Yeah. The only again, and this is the pessimistic side of things, is we've been witnessing pop music plateau and flatline, and even if you want to be a musician in today's day and age, it was already rough even 10 years ago,
Oh
15
yeah.
years ago to even
Oh
be
yeah.
discovered. Now it's even going to be harder with the amount of
Mm-hmm.
flooding that untrained ears are going to hear and be accepting of that. I feel and I could be worried about nothing, but I just feel like the plight for a musician to be discovered, like what's his name? The guy from England, red hair,
Ed Sheeran.
uh, yeah, Sheeran, for example. Like, how's the next Ed Sheeran going to be discovered? I'm not a big fan of his music. I think it's okay. It's very just kind of. I feel like it's folksy pop, but it is part of pop, and
Yeah.
so I don't know people how you feel about his music, but
He is
um,
fine. I mean,
but yeah,
I
that's how
don't
I feel
like
about him
him.
too.
I don't dislike him. He's just there. And
Yeah.
yeah. And but that's my point. Maybe Ed
Hmm.
Sheeran, he can't rest on his laurels anymore. Maybe it's not good enough for him to be just fine, right? You
Yeah.
know who doesn't need to worry is Adele. I mean, no one is
Well,
gonna
no,
emulate Adele, right? I mean, like this is
no.
right.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It's
That's true.
Nickelback. It's Creed. It's Ed Sheeran. It's, in my opinion, Taylor Swift. I know everybody loves Taylor Swift. I find her music to be intolerably generic. Um,
Hmm. Oh man.
you know, and maybe it will start forcing some of these artists, not Taylor Swift, obviously, because
Oh,
she's just a
we're gonna.
brand. She's a brand now, right? She's no
She
longer
is.
a musician. She has transcended music at this point.
Yeah, it's
Um,
incredible.
but for
She's
yeah,
incredible. Yeah,
and
in that
more
regard.
props
But
to her.
yeah,
I mean,
she's.
she's an amazing businesswoman. I mean, like I am constantly right. I mean, she's an unbelievably impressive human being. I think her music
Mhm,
is garbage, but I find her to
mhm.
be an
Man,
unbelievably brilliant entrepreneur, right? Or at least, at the very least,
makes.
she's smart enough to
Oh.
surround herself with smart people. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh. So I
Um,
want to. I will stick up for Taylor Swift in this way. Like she writes her music.
she
She is
does.
really smart, I think, and she doesn't do anything insane. She always seems to care about her fans, and I think all that kind of adds to the persona of her.
Mm-hmm.
Her music is
Mm-hmm.
fine. It's not for me. I don't really in that area. I agree with you there. It's not for me, but she does have that. She did figure out the formula that gets catchy stuff. She gets it out there, and
Yep.
that's where the business side of it is excellent. And again, she takes care of her fans. So before Swifties come and attack us, I mean, I want to,
Yeah,
make sure that
that's fine.
we do get that out as for sure. But
Look, I had a good run.
yeah,
If a mob of Swifties come to my door and murder me, then there are worse ways to go.
well, that
Um,
is true. Yeah,
but
it may make for a great story.
I think you tapped onto another piece of this though, is the human element, because you're right. She takes care of her fans. She, at
Hmm.
least
Yeah,
outwardly, really seems to care and want her fans to love her. That's something that
yeah.
AI is incapable of doing. Because again, we're talking about a system of algorithms, not artificial sentience, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so these algorithms are incapable of appreciating their fans the way that Taylor Swift appreciates her fans, right? And
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
is a huge component of it as well. The human element is what is always going to be missing from these systems.
Hmm.
Like
But I get, yeah,
AI is never going to put on an Eras tour, which, I mean, good lord, like that's a generation defining concert tour, right? I
hmm,
mean, I
hmm.
don't like Taylor Swift, and I still watch clips for that, going, Jesus Christ,
It's crazy.
you know. So,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I mean, I think people like Taylor Swift are safe because she has transcended music, right? And
So
but maybe people like Nickelback or groups like Nickelback and performers like Ed Sheeran will have to step up their game, and maybe they'll work harder, produce something better. Maybe we've only seen the beginning of what these groups can do up to this point.
I hope so, but I I just don't, like for example, Ed Sheeran or Billie Eilish,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
those artists now, these modern day artists, how are they going to stand out in a sea of now AI generated music that they were competing against other fellow human artists, but now
yeah. But
and these
okay,
human,
so I'm
I
sorry, I don't mean to
don't
interrupt, but I think
know. Hmm,
it won't be an issue because what happens
yeah,
is that people become increasingly sophisticated. Just like if you try to
yeah,
watch a TV show from the early days of TV, it's almost unwatchable. But when it aired, when it was broadcast originally, it was revolutionary, right? It was amazing.
hmm,
Now, some
hmm,
shows hold the test of time. I Love Lucy is still an amazing sitcom. You know what's not
hmm,
an amazing sitcom? The F Troop, right? I mean, it is a horribly racist, caricaturized version of the Western frontier and the Civil
hmm,
War era.
hmm,
Um,
hmm,
People become more sophisticated, and so yes, in the short term, they might be bought in by all of this AI stuff and might have trouble differentiating between AI and the performers. But as the performers compete with the AI and they get better, because AI is not capable, again, it's not capable of getting better, it's only capable of mimicking.
hmm.
So as the humans get better at what they do, the audience will become more sophisticated and they will be able to filter out the generic bad AI stuff. And so I, I
Man,
don't I don't think it
hmm.
will actually be any harder as long as people strive to be better than the new baseline. That's what it boils down to.
So yeah, and this, I mean, we're gonna end up in a loop because as
Yeah,
humans get better, AI will have no choice but to get better because they're just ripping off the next
right.
layer of better. Next, it never stops. See, that's
Yeah,
my concern
yeah,
is
but I think what's because again, and we talked about this offline, what human beings are, and this is another reason why human beings are so successful from an evolutionary standpoint. We're pattern detecting machines.
hmm,
Human
hmm,
beings are
yeah,
phenomenally good at identifying patterns. And I think that that's one of the reasons why we love human creations is because
hmm,
all of our art, all of our everything, um, is built on patterns, but it's the idiosyncrasy of our irrational brains that create those weird flicks of unexpected, right? It's why that punchline works so good. It's why a pun
yeah,
succeeds. It's why that twist in the movie succeeds. What's going to happen is the longer that AI exists, we are going to start detecting the patterns in AI and become increasingly more sophisticated of identifying AI versus real. I mean, you already highlighted this to a certain extent with your friend who's the professor. who can already look at a
Mhm.
paper and see that it was written by ChatGPT,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
already
Yeah.
happening,
For
and
sure.
ChatGPT is only but existed, in a consumer facing capacity, what, a year, 2 years at this point,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So
I mean,
again,
and I mean,
yeah,
we can even talk about even the uncanny valley when you're watching media,
yeah.
like how there's a reason why it exists.
hmm
Um,
Human
yeah,
beings are
but
incredibly good at pattern recognition, and AI is going to fall into that because the algorithms it's based on, it's really good at detecting human patterns and mimicking those patterns. That's all it can do.
yeah, yeah, it's a fascinating subject for sure.
Oh yeah, no,
But
absolutely.
here's the good news. I know we've been going for a while, so we'll probably wrap up here.
Yeah,
But
good
here's the good
song
news:
hour.
is this this hour was spent with two humans talking and drawing. Everything is
Yeah,
proof right here that we
that's
are.
right.
This is a human created thing with all the idiosyncrasies that you're talking about. The uncanny valley doesn't even have to exist here because of the nature of the designs we
That's
have
right.
for Calamity Jane.
That's right.
But there is some hope in that. Like and we now, in a strange way, since we've started doing our streams, we've actually sort of time capsuled human endeavor to make the cartoon.
hmm
It actually has proof that two humans are actually making it, which is kind of funny. I
And
don't know, I don't know. I don't want to cosmically wrap it up that way, but that's kind of, I just found that ironic
and
a
I,
little
I
bit.
I will wrap it up a little bit. I'll put a little bit of a bow tie on the end of it.
Uh,
If we fed all of our years of streams into an LLM and had it produce another episode of our show, it would still suck, right?
yeah, well, yeah.
Because the only thing it can do is look backward. It can't look forward,
Yeah, yeah, true.
right? It
That's
can't
profound.
it can't look forward to the next movie coming out. It can't look forward to the next section of the game that we're currently playing. It can't pick the next scene from Calamity Jane that you want to work on animating, right? It is by design only looking backwards. And because of that, it could never ultimately replace a human being. It can only supplement humans. So I'll leave it there.
That's a nice bow,
So
for
anyway,
sure.
all right. So I think we've really covered the gamut on AI tonight. So
We solved
we
everything
solved
tonight,
the AI
actually.
problem, everybody. You can go home. Um, anyway, you can head on over to calamityjane.rocks. That'll take you to our Patreon site. Please consider subscribing and helping us make this cartoon a reality because we are, alas, only two humans working on this and not robots. You can also find us on YouTube and Facebook, which presumably you already have because you're watching the stream. We're also on Instagram at Calamity Jane Salamander. It's been kind of quiet over there. I've been trying to get back into the groove of things. Life has been complicated. But we do semi-regularly post over there. Concept art, behind the scenes stuff. Give you a little taste of how the show comes into being outside of the stream. But other than that, we'll see you next week. James, I don't think there's any reason why we won't be here next week.
Yep.
All right.
Same YouTube channel, same YouTube time,
That's
same
right.
Calamity Salamander time,
That's
whatever
right.
our catchphrase is.
That's right. And remember, if an AI knocks on your door, don't be afraid of it. It's more afraid of you than you are of it. All right, everybody. Have a good night out there, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Good night.